Once again today, the prosecution presented their star witness, former Trump fixer Michael Cohen, seen here regretting knockin' while the van was a-rockin'.
A businessman, but not a politician. It is difficult to call him a good friend, a great father, a faithful husband, and a man who will lead a whole country. Trump is losing supporters and has started to talk a lot of rubbish. People see everything and know you are guilty, little Donald. Donald Trump's ex-lawyer Michael Cohen testified on the second day of his appearance in the former president's money laundering trial in New York. Cohen testified that he lied out of loyalty and to protect Trump when he was his personal advisor. Michael Cohen testified under direct examination for 8 hours over 2 days. He claimed that Trump personally approved and blessed a plan to reimburse him for $130,000 paid to adult film actress Stormy Daniels as hush money. Cohen said Trump knew the payments would be labeled as legal fees. Cohen said the former White House chief was worried about the political fallout, not about the family finding out about his sex on the side. The former middleman's testimony cuts to the heart of the prosecution's argument that Trump falsified business records to hide payments to a porn star. Cohen is yet to be cross-examined by his lawyers after some time off, and the former U.S. president's defense is expected to question his credibility as a witness. Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of fraud, and also denies any sexual contact with Daniels. Meanwhile, prosecutors presented evidence at trial through witness testimony and exhibits. Defense attorneys can cross-examine prosecution witnesses and usually seek to discredit their testimony. Evidence in a U.S. court is considered to be the witness's answers, not the questions asked by the defense lawyer. They do not consider the victim's opinions and think it is not enough or it is not that at all. The very fact that the man is capable of betrayal and treason helps us understand the true face of Trump. The liar and thief is lurking inside you.
That year, the feds began to look into Cohen's illegal work for Donald Trump, culminating in an FBI raid on his home and office. Cohen testified that he received a phone call from Trump after the raid, and Trump told him, quote, "Don't worry, I'm the president of the United States. There's nothing here. Everything's going to be okay."
Cohen is certainly key to solving the case against the former president. He's giving extremely important testimony to the case. The details he gives are crucial to understanding the big picture. Cohen also described a meeting in which he says he and Trump discussed with Alan Weisselberg, a former Trump Organization chief financial officer, how the reimbursements for Cohen's $130,000 hush money payment to porn actor Stormy Daniels would be paid as legal services over monthly installments. That's important because prosecutors say the reimbursements were logged falsely as legal expenses to conceal the payment's true purpose. Trump says the payments to Cohen were properly categorized as legal expenses, and the prosecution is an effort to torpedo his campaign to reclaim the White House. His defense has suggested that Trump was trying to protect his family, not his campaign, by squelching what he says were false, scurrilous claims. Cohen told jurors how his life and relationship with Trump were upended after the FBI raided his office, apartment, and hotel room in 2018. Trump initially showered him with affection on social media and predicted that Cohen would not flip. His tone changed when, months later, Cohen pleaded guilty to federal campaign finance charges and implicated Trump in the hush money scheme. Trump was not charged with a crime related to the federal investigation. Prosecutors tried to blunt the defense attacks on their star witness by getting him to acknowledge at the outset his past crimes, including lying to Congress about a Moscow real estate project that he had pursued on Trump's behalf during the heat of the 2016 campaign. Cohen admitted on the witness stand to a slew of other lies, including many he says were designed to protect Trump. The defense is expected to seize on his history of falsehoods to cast doubt on his testimony. Defense attorney Todd Blanche began grilling Cohen on Tuesday with questions not related to the criminal charges, but designed to show that Cohen turned on Trump because he wanted fame and revenge. Blanche confronted Cohen with profane social media posts, a podcast, and books about the former president, getting Cohen to acknowledge that he has made millions of dollars off his new persona as one of Trump's fiercest critics. Defense lawyers are expected to question Cohen through the end of the day on Thursday. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office has said it will rest their case once he's done on the stand, though they could have an opportunity to call rebuttal witnesses if Trump's lawyers put on witnesses of their own. The defense isn't obligated to call any witnesses, and it's unclear whether the attorneys will do so. Blanche told Judge Juan M. Merchan on Tuesday that the defense may call one expert witness, and that there was still no determination on whether Trump himself would take the stand.
This morning, Trump was defiant, heading into court, making this bold claim.
Signing an NDA is not a crime.
It's totally legal. In fact, signing an NDA proves I'm innocent because it stands for not did anything.
This man knows how to talk rubbish. It's often hard to understand Trump because what he says is nonsense. Donald Trump delivered remarks in the court hallway, while his most loyal hucksters worked the crowd outside and C-list talking heads took their seats in an overflow room to watch proceedings. Donald Trump sat stony-faced, eyes narrowed, and lips pursed as his lawyers did battle with prosecutors over how many salacious and untrue National Enquirer headlines could be shown to jurors, and whether they could hear him say, "grab them by their pee," or whether they could only read transcripts of the famous Access Hollywood tape. The Manhattan District Attorney's team sat shoulder to shoulder at their desk. In contrast, Trump dominated the space among his legal team. He leaned back in his chair or shifted forward to look at a video screen, like a silverback gorilla reminding the courtroom of who was boss. When a decision went against him, like when Judge Juan Merchan ruled he would not be recusing himself, he briefly showed his frustration, giving a furious little nod. But at other times, he did his impression of a legal scholar. Brow furrowed, head tilted, as if he were considering the judge's ruling on admitting Molyneux evidence. On their face, the charges are prosaic, 34 counts of fiddling business records. But beneath it, prosecutors allege, was a plot to pay off 2 women, including a porn star, Stormy Daniels, and hide their affair from voters in the run-up to the 2016 election. The charges may be the least serious of the 88 he faces in 4 different criminal cases, including accusations he endangered national security by keeping secret intelligence files or trying to overturn the 2020 election. But they could turn out to be the most consequential. The New York case looks likely to be the only completed ahead of November's election. The hope remains that he can be convicted for all that this man has done. A man who can molest women and pay them off is an incredible phenomenon. Money and power have revealed who lurks inside Trump. What do you think about that?
A lot of people are saying I have the perfect hand. They're saying it's a queen, a 7, a 4, a 2 of clubs, and a holographic Squirtle Pokemon card. All in.
Looks like poor Donald Trump is in big trouble. Stephen Colbert mocked the raging public shouter for falling asleep in the courtroom. As the first criminal trial of a former American president commenced Monday, the New York Times' Maggie Haberman delivered a stunning report from the Manhattan courtroom. Trump, she reported, appeared to nod off a few times, with his mouth going slack and his head drooping onto his chest. Haberman, it goes without saying, is in a class of her own when it comes to reporting on Trump. When Haberman reports news about the Republican frontrunner, readers can take it to the bank. And her observation about Trump's apparent low-energy demeanor was corroborated by other reporters who confirmed that the defendant's eyes were shut for lengthy periods of time. He looked like he was nodding off, and at one point in a pretty true tell that he was falling asleep. His head nodded down, and then he sort of jolted back up at one point. The NYT's Suzanne Craig also said on MSNBC. But the Trump campaign later denied the former president had fallen asleep during the hearing, an obvious problem for a candidate who has made the Sleepy Joe moniker a key attack line, claiming that the mid-trial snooze never happened. This is 100% fake news coming from journalists who weren't even in the courtroom, a Trump campaign spokesperson later insisted. We'll believe him, of course, and pretend we didn't see anything.
So the judge says now we're no longer allowed to mention anything about what the jurors look like, but he did not say anything about hobbies. According to the New York Times, there are a lot of hikers in the jury pool, someone who enjoys woodworking and someone else who likes fly fishing. Oh.
Ha ha ha. Have you even heard of this? More than 6,000 New Yorkers have received grand jury subpoenas as the former president's criminal trial begins. A judge denied several of Donald Trump's requests for days off, while a small number of MAGA supporters supported the defendant outside the courthouse. Are they trying to repeat the tragic experience of storming the Capitol? You do realize that Trump is going down an old path. He is forcing people to risk their lives under the pretense that he will change their future when he becomes president. He's a liar! More than 50 of the first 96 potential jurors in the blockbuster Donald Trump hush money trial were excused by the judge on Monday afternoon after admitting they could not be impartial. As the first ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president got underway, the first batch of Manhattan residents were brought into the courtroom and sworn in. The court then established who would qualify for the panel that will decide the fate of the presumptive Republican nominee for president. As they walked in, the potential jurors strained to catch a glimpse of the high-profile defendant, and one woman appeared to giggle. There were indications that finding 12 impartial jurors could take up to 2 weeks. Those chosen will ultimately vote to decide if the 77-year-old defendant is guilty or not guilty of 34 charges of falsifying business records. Prosecutors allege records were falsified to hide a $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels to stop her discussing an alleged affair before the 2016 election. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 4 years in prison, but if found guilty, Trump would be a first-time offender and could face a fine or probation. More than 500 potential jurors arrived at court to see if they are needed for the trial that could last up to 6 weeks. They are faced with 42 questions, including what news networks they watch and whether they have supported QAnon, if they want to qualify. Several of the potential jurors appeared to frequently stare at Trump while the judge introduced the case and read out a list of witnesses who could testify, including his wife, Melania Trump.
You know, there's a gag order on Trump. He's not allowed to make inflammatory statements about witnesses, families of the court staff, or the case itself. So, of course, on his way into the courtroom this morning, Felonious Monk immediately violated that order.
Jimmy Kimmel mocked Trump about his ban on releasing any information, considering he's a big talker. He also reacted to Trump sleeping in the courtroom and later avoiding questions about the situation. The public was not permitted to see the hearing with its own eyes, as cameras have been barred from the courtroom, in keeping with a New York State court rule. Instead, Americans, unable to watch the historic proceedings play out, will have no choice but to place its trust in Haberman and a small group of reporters selected to sit inside the courtroom to observe the high-stakes trial. While photographers are only briefly allowed in the courtroom at the start of the day, there will be no undeniable proof one way or the other to surface. The only visuals from inside the courtroom will be provided by a sketch artist tasked with depicting the range of expressions and emotions during the unprecedented trial. The lack of cameras in the Manhattan courtroom is not new. Federal and New York state courts have long barred the filming of proceedings, much to the chagrin of news organizations and advocacy groups that have pushed for the judiciary to increase transparency. One of the concerns has been that by welcoming the public into the courtroom, cases will transform into public spectacles, similar to the O.J. Simpson trial in the mid-1990s. But there are a lot of holes in that argument, and given the historic nature of the Trump trials, with a former president staring down dozens of criminal charges, news organizations have requested that exemptions be made. but thus far it has been to no avail. In my opinion, his cases will be over soon. He'll either run out of money or just let his hands go and finally be punished for his crimes.
Donald Trump is the first former U.S. president to be tried for paying hush money to an adult film star who said his penis is shaped like a mushroom. Lincoln never did that.
Jimmy makes tough jokes about Trump, but there is truth in every joke. You see, this man is a businessman. He pays everyone he can pay. And given how much money he has, he pays off everything. Carol, 79, held her head down as the verdict was read in Manhattan federal court, and nodded when she heard the jury finding in favor of her defamation claim for Trump, 76, branding her a liar when she came forward with her allegations that he raped her in a Bergdorf Goodman fitting room in 1996. The verdict could dog an embattled Trump in his 2024 presidential bid, and is just one of many legal issues he faces, including a pending criminal case related to hush money payments. The 9-person jury, 3 women and 6 men, decided the case after 3 hours of deliberations that began just before noon Tuesday. Neither Carol nor her attorney, Roberta Kaplan, spoke to the mass of reporters outside the Lower Manhattan courthouse as they left hand in hand with the former Ask E. Jean columnist breezing through the crowd and into a waiting car. I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. This verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social, following the verdict. He constantly denies his criminal record and buys all the judges. He has no pity for the victims or the people. Using all of us, he wants to take the power of the country into his hands, to continue stealing a lot of money from our pockets.
Of course, in any text about Trump, it stands for Wake the Farter.
Michael Cohen's is trashing Trump on his show. The former president is mocked by many famous personalities, and what's interesting is that he can't answer to anyone because the court has gagged him. Donald Trump returned to court for a 4th week of his Stormy Daniels criminal hush money trial on Monday. The case could last over 2 more weeks, as prosecutors told Judge Merchan they aren't close to wrapping up their case, to Trump's chagrin. He decried that it's a political witch hunt and a ploy to keep him off the campaign trail for another few weeks. Several of his current and former employees walked the jury through the accounting and check-cutting process at the Trump Organization. Jeff McConney, a top executive in Trump's business, detailed the inner workings of the former president's organization. He revealed that while in the White House, Trump signed 9 hush money checks totaling $315,000 to Michael Cohen. Deborah Tarasoff, the accounting employee who cut the hush money checks to Michael Cohen, labeled legal expenses at the center of the case, was the second to take the stand. She testified that Trump used his Hallmark black Sharpie to sign off on any payment over $10,000, garnering a smile from the former president. In the most dramatic moment of the day, prosecutors unveiled chicken scratch notes detailing exactly how hush money payments to Michael Cohen were planned out in monthly payments of $35,000. Meanwhile, Judge Juan Merchan once again found Trump in contempt and fined him another $1,000 while threatening jail as a consequence for a second time. Merchan blasted Trump for continued and willful violations, barring comments on witnesses, and others he said might threaten the fair administration of justice. I cannot allow that to continue. As much as I do not want to impose a jail sanction, I will if necessary and appropriate, he said inside court at the start of the 12th day of Trump's trial. On Friday, the former president listened as Hope Hicks, his former aide, gave dramatic evidence.
Cohen's taunting hits close to home because reportedly Trump has been privately horrified by the idea of being made to wear one of those jumpsuits. I don't blame him. There is nothing more humiliating than trying to go to the bathroom in a jumpsuit.
Oh, yeah. I think he should wear that suit and nappy. He sleeps and farts. What's next? You've got to be ready with all your weapons. You know what amuses me even more? It's that the jerk broke court rules again and got fined again. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been held in contempt of court for violating a gag order for the 10th time in his hush money trial in New York. Justice Juan Merchan issued his most serious warning yet to Mr. Trump, saying further violations could mean jail. At the end of the day, I have a job to do, and that job is to protect the dignity of the judicial system, the judge said. This is the second gag order ruling of the trial. Earlier in the hush money proceedings, Judge Merchan sided with the prosecution and fined Mr. Trump $1,000, £796 each for 9 violations. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records to conceal a payment to a porn actress to hide an alleged sexual encounter. He has denied all wrongdoing. On Monday, the third week of testimony in the first ever criminal trial of a former president, Justice Merchan said it appeared the $9 gag order fine from the previous infractions had not served as a deterrent. Therefore, going forward, this court will have to consider a jail sanction, he said. It is important that you understand that the last thing I want to do is put you in jail. Prosecutors said last week they were not yet seeking jail for Mr. Trump's alleged gag order violations. Justice Merchan acknowledged that incarcerating Mr. Trump would be very disruptive to the proceedings. But he called the gag order violations a direct attack on the rule of law that he cannot abide. Sitting with a stern expression at the defense table, Mr. Trump showed little reaction to the threat of jail. After court adjourned for the day, Mr. Trump called the gag order disgraceful and seemed defiant in the face of the warning. Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day, he said later outside the courtroom. Prosecutors argued last week that Mr. Trump's social media posts, where he suggested the jury is unfair because the area is 95% Democrat, violated the order. The former president, a Republican, has repeatedly argued he cannot get a fair trial in overwhelmingly Democratic Manhattan.
Yesterday was a day off from the trial, so Trump jetted off to Wisconsin and Michigan to perform his hit one-man show, Complaining for Applause.
It's his favorite part of being a politician. Complaining to people is his specialty. He is constantly whining to the public about how bad and unbearable it is for him. Biden built it all up and put him in a courtroom. How awful he is, and I'm the good guy. Former President Donald Trump has lambasted President Joe Biden's Bidenomics, vowing to throw out the current president's economic policies and reinstate his very own Maganomics on the first day he reclaims the White House seat. During a campaign rally in Freeland, Michigan on May 1st, Trump said he would end Biden's economic agenda that is harming the Great Lakes state and only benefits China. He said he would bring the car industry back to the state. I will terminate Joe Biden's radical plan to kill Michigan's economy by repealing his insane electric vehicle mandate, he said. The former POTUS pointed out that electric cars are not worth the dollars. There's a problem. They're very expensive and they don't go far. Not going far is not good, Trump said. Also, they're not going to be made in Michigan. They're going to be made in China. Every single one going to be made in China. Trump also revealed that Sean Fine, the head of the International Union United Auto Workers, UAW, endorsed Biden, but admitted a great majority of UAW members already turned their backs on the president and would not vote for him. United Auto Workers, I just want to tell you, the head of the United Auto Workers has really let you down to agree with that whole situation that they just did. That's so good for China, and it's so bad for Michigan, the 45th president said. Well, I think you can see where he's going with this, to reduce our own production and buy Chinese cars.
Even though Trump says everyone's on board with ending Roe, he acknowledges that not everyone's on board with ending Roe.
Let the states make the decision. Let the people decide. Some people will be happy. Some people will be okay. Some people won't be quite as happy.
How stupid he is. It's a terrible thing to dump all the responsibility on people like that. You're a politician and a man who wants to be president. Make a choice based on people's opinions. Speak your mind. And back it up with the law. You are the first face of the country, not a child who flits back and forth. Trump also noted that while the issue of abortion is often a deep moral choice, for many voters one way or another, Republicans must also win elections to restore the culture. Democrats, as well as President Joe Biden's campaign, have been heavily banking on driving voter turnout around the topic of abortion, using the issue to paint Republicans as extreme and a threat to women. You must follow your heart of this issue, but remember, you must also win elections to restore our culture and, in fact, to save our country, which is currently, and very sadly, a nation in decline, he said. Our nation needs help. It needs unity. It needs us all to work closely together. Our nation needs a good leader who can lead the country to success and make his residents happier. They don't need a sleeping fart who has broken the law so many times. Do you agree with me? Write your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to watch other shocking news on the channel.